นะคะเข้าสู่ Student Fireside Chat ค่ะดิฉันสู้ชิงจิตสุภาชินจาก Voice TV นะคะทำหน้าที่เป็นพิธีกรดำเนินรายการในวันนี้ค่ะในวันนี้นะคะเราจะมาพูดคุยกันเกี่ยวกับอนาคตของประเทศไทยและก็ความสามารถของประเทศไทยในการที่จะเป็นผู้นำในวงการเทคโนโลยีทั้งในภูมิภาคอาเซียนและก็ระดับโลกค่ะโดยที่เรานะคะจะมีการพูดคุยกับบุคคลที่ถือว่าเป็นคนที่เป็นแถวหน้าของวงการเทคโนโลยีนะคะGood morning and welcome everyone. I'm Sushing Jisupachin from Voice TV and I will be hosting today's Student Fireside Chat. Today we are here to discover Thailand's potential to take a leadership role on a regional and global stage in the digital age. We will hear some very interesting thoughts and be inspired by a global figure, and for the next full hour, we will discuss these topics and even more. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Eric Schmidt, Executive Chairman of Google. ขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับคุณเอริก ชมิดประธานบริหารบริษัท Google ค่ะ
Hi. Thank you, Sucheng. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. It's been an honor to me and to everyone else in the room and those who are watching at home to welcome you to Thailand.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I know you're from all around the country, from all the top universities. I love education and I love scientists and I love students. I cannot think of a better use of my time here in Thailand.
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but instead of using this paper regular clipboard, I thought it would be a nice touch if I use this Google's tablet Nexus 7. It is such an amazing product. But do you know what's even more amazing? Google Glass and driverless cars in Thailand.
Absolutely. Well, how about the newly announced Nexus 5? Came out last week.
Okay, yours is newly launched. Okay, I was just kidding because I think Google Maps and Google Street View, we already can't thank you enough for those products. Yeah, it saves our lives.
What's interesting is that the maps turned out to be much more important than I thought. Many countries don't have really accurate maps, and we now have a single map that's quite accurate of the entire world. And it's a source of great pride for us, and of course it's something that really benefits every city, every town, every rural village in Thailand.
Okay, and we are grateful for that. Well, before we came here, since today we're going to be talking about our potentials, what we are capable of and what Thailand should do. So before I came here and talked to you, I did a little research and I turned into this one tool that I think everyone else in the world, especially students right here in this room, always turn to. I turned to Google. So I typed in Thailand should to see the answer, and you know what Google's autocomplete told me? Well, it said Thailand should host Olympics games. How about that?
Certainly after Japan.
All right. Okay, since Fireside Chat today is being held for the students of Thailand, whether they are here...
By the way, I should say that I watched this extraordinary television show about the building of a new bridge here. And as I flew in, I thought I'd really like to learn more about it. And so what is the query to Google? New bridge, Bangkok, and boom, there it all is. If you're a curious person about the world, it's very hard to travel without Google now.
Yeah.
And it's your Rama 8 bridge, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So as I said earlier, that today the event is being held for the Thai students, whether they're in this room or watching us at home on Google Hangout sessions, so that they can all have a chance to talk to you face to face and to ask questions. But before we get into that Q&A session, I would like for all of us to get to know you a little bit better by starting at the beginning. When you were a child, you always dream about technology.
Well, I really wanted to drive an earth mover.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to be a train conductor. So then I built trains, and then I wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force, but of course my glasses wouldn't allow me to do that. But I think like many people of my generation, I was inspired by the space program. Right. So of course I wanted to be an astronaut, which is also a no. So I ended up being an engineer.
But everything has always been related to technology.
Yeah, and the reason technology matters is almost all progress in humanity has been because of invention and technology. Until the 1800s, the gross domestic product, the amount of money that the world made, was pretty much constant. And then when engineers invented the industrial age, railroads, transportation, telephony, the steam engine, steel, all of those things, aluminum, the growth rate began to come up. And today, you're looking at 200 years of innovation inside of this building, right? The steel, the air conditioning, the lights, the power, the amplification. Right. An example is that 100 years ago, when we would have had this meeting, we would not have had speakers. So we'd have to be screaming so you could hear us. Little things like that make a big difference.
Right. Otherwise, we'll all be screaming, shouting right now. So what was the point that you decided to get into information technology field?
In my case, there was no computer science when I was in college, but my father had gotten me a terminal that allowed me to access a high school computer, which at the time was extremely rare. And I liked it so much, when I went to college, I started programming. And I programmed my way through graduate school. Today, I would have, if I were 15, in my room, I'm sure my mother would be upset. I'd have 10 computers and all sorts of networks and screens and graphics and so forth. That's what I was.
All right. And you must be the type of guy who has come up with lots of interesting ideas, and being in your position, you must have heard so many ideas from other people around you. How can you tell the difference between a good idea and a great one?
Well, I don't think I have very good ideas anymore, and I may never had, but I know how to listen to good ideas. Right. And the best way to do good ideas is to have a conversation with a group and say, what's your idea, what's your idea, what's your idea, and get the other two to say which one is the best. And if you have a little bit of a conversation and you ask people, what are the best ideas? And you're open to critical thinking, you know, you're not just believing what you've been told, and you're skeptical, you can invent amazing things.
Right. So are you saying that if you keep talking and talking without listening to other people, you might not come up with good ideas at all?
Well, usually you learn more from listening than from talking. I like to think you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so you should listen 2/3 of the time and talk 1/3 of the time, right? So there's a good rule for you.
Oh, great point. All right, and what are some of the things that you see as possibly holding Thai innovation back? And what advice would you give our audience today on how to be more innovative, whether they are students, a developer, or a young entrepreneur?
I am a guest in your country, and I'm not an expert on the Thai educational system. What I have been told is that the system is not asking the hard enough questions, that the students are not, as a general statement, encouraged to be critical, to think about new ideas and so forth. Now, one way to do that, to solve that problem, is to get them on the internet. Because the internet exposes you to every idea, including bad ones, by the way, right? They're not all good ideas. There's good ideas and bad ideas. And teach students to differentiate. Is that a good idea or is that a bad idea? Is that moral? Is that ethical? And people are very curious. I am sure that every person here in the audience is extremely curious. So use the curiosity of people to get them to ask new questions. That then begins to drive the transition. What I do think about Thailand is, for example, you have a very successful automobile industry. We like to think of you all as the sort of Detroit of Asia in a good sense. That requires very sophisticated engineering skills here in the country, and it's a source of great pride. What do you need to grow that? More engineers. Very simple. You need to develop more of a software industry. You need more startups, because software is typically done by startups. There are many, many things that could be done that would be useful by engineers and startups here in the country that would make money.
All right, so I think it is time for us to start our Q&A session.
Okay.
Our students right here are waiting for us. Our first question will be from Bangkok University, which is the student who's right here with us in this room. And I'd like to invite Kun Tachanon Del Castillo to come up on the stage. Come on up and join us, please.
Thank you.
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะแนะนำตัวเองสักหน่อยนะคะ
I'm Robot. My name is my nickname. This
His nickname is
yeah.
Robot.
Because
He's
my
not
mom
saying that
loves
he's
Star
Robot.
Wars.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's honor to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, how can Thailand create its own Silicon Valley like the United States and India? And how would Google encourage the entrepreneurs in Thailand to to recognize the importance of computer-related fields and see their active roles in their organization, and in a bid to persuade computer-related graduates to apply for a job in the kingdom. Thank
Good.
you.
So let me tell you a way not to do it. Let's imagine a rural area which is just farmland, and we're going to build a tech city. And we're going to take all those engineers and we're going to put them over there. That's exactly the wrong way to do it. The reason I say that is many governments want to create a Silicon Valley by building the roads and a city, but in fact Silicon Valley is a mindset. I think you do it right here in Bangkok, maybe in a fun part. Is there any part that's full of young people, cafes, not too expensive, probably not the downtown, maybe one of the outskirts? And you say to yourself, where would young people want to live? Creative, interesting, and so forth. And then you get companies to help fund that. And you give people some risk capital, low salaries, right? And see if you can build some businesses. It's helpful to have a few successes. You have one or two companies, one or two entrepreneurs that builds robots, great software, solves the transportation problems, and then you'll be great. Around the world, Thai engineering is thought to be pretty good. There's no issue with Thai intelligence or engineering. It's really, you just have to prioritize it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question ขอบคุณนะคะ
ครับ ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ
Thank you.
สวัสดีครับ
I think in Thailand the government has started something like that. This one province that was supposed to be Thailand Silicon Valley, but I'm not sure whether they started it just like the way you described, which is the wrong way. So we have to reconsider that plan.
It doesn't work because engineers like to be with other people. They actually like to have friends and
Right.
social life and activity, and they like to be part of the community. So if you look, the new model is you do it in cities. And it doesn't, as I said, have to be in the downtown. Maybe it's in the suburb, maybe where the traffic is not quite so bad, right? Or near a major university. Right.
Okay. All right, now we're going to switch to our hangout section, and waiting for us in the chat room is คุณกุราโคกศรีนอก from Khon Kaen University, which is situated from the on the northeastern side of Thailand. คุณกุราสวัสดีค่ะ แนะนำตัวเองนิดนึงนะคะ
So where is the city that you're in?
Yeah, my city is not part of Thailand. Yeah, today I have some questions. My question is, as a highly experienced CEO, what are some tips you can share with us about managing a large number of people, which you need strengths and weakness?
I'm sorry I couldn't hear
You
some
get
of
the
it.
question?
No,
I
maybe
can
you could repeat the question.
Okay.
For me.
So his question is, as a highly experienced CEO, what are some tips you can share with us about managing a large number of people with unique strengths and weaknesses?
I think the most important thing to do is to recognize that they do the work and you don't. And that's very difficult for rich, powerful, you do this and kind of personalities. The most effective leadership is much more like a university. What do you want to do? What are your creative ideas? And ask questions. Now, obviously, you don't want to do things that are wrong or illegal or anything like that. So you have to put your foot down. You have to say, that's not okay. But you want to nourish the creativity of everyone. And that, I think, is the secret of Google's management.
Okay ขอบคุณสำหรับคำถามนะคะ Alright, next we are going to move back to this room, and the next question will be from Chiang Mai University, which is from the north of Thailand, and she is also a member of the indigenous Akha Hill tribe. Please welcome คุณอัมพรแซ่หลิว to come up on the stage.
Good evening, Mr. Schmidt. My nickname is Jing Mong. Today,
Can you tell me what the tribe is?
Aka, Udutama, Jama, Jing Mong. โอเคค่ะสำหรับชนเผ่าอาคานะคะเรื่องราวที่น่าสนใจของพวกเรานะคะก็เกี่ยวกับเรื่องของวัฒนธรรมเรื่องของประเพณีนะคะซึ่งเรามีวัฒนธรรมและประเพณีที่เด่นๆและสำคัญอย่างเช่นการโลชิงช้านะคะซึ่งถือว่าเป็นการขอบคุณเทพยดานะคะที่ช่วยปกปักรักษาต้นข้าวนะคะนอกจากนี้เราก็ยังมีพวกปีใหม่ลูกคางปีใหม่ไข่แดงแล้วก็เป็นมีภาษาที่เป็นเอกลักษณ์เป็นของตัวเองค่ะ
describe the characteristic of the Akha Hill tribe, and they have like lots of traditions and culture and things, rituals that they do, especially their language, their dialect language is what's
Wonderful.
important.
Thank you.
คำถามเลยค่ะ
Do you think the growing use of internet will make people spend more time online and offline, and this internet positive and negative for society?
I'm sorry, so the question is, as more people come online, what are the positives and negatives?
Right.
Okay. So the numbers roughly are about 2.5 billion people are online, and so that means that about 5 billion are not. So the majority of humans are not online. And we believe that in the next 5 years, another 4 billion will join, mostly through mobile phones. For many of those, the arrival of this phone will be huge because it will be medicine, it will be education, it will be entertainment, and it will be safety. So for them, the impact is huge, huge, huge. Now, along the way, not every one of those 4 billion people is a good person. There will be more criminals, there will be more terrorists and all of that. But on balance, it's better to get everyone connected. It's like building roads. It's better to have more roads, even if a few of the cars are the wrong cars, and then work on trying to find out who the bad people are and dealing with them in the appropriate ways. But when I think about how would you grow an economy in a rural area, you have to have the internet. Farmers want to know more about the weather. They want to know more about seed. They want to know more about nutrition of their animals. So even the most poor benefit from this connectivity.
Thank you.
ขอบคุณสำหรับคำถามนะคะอาจารย์
Thank you.
And this is also why Google is creating lots of products that has to do with getting people around the world to be connected, to be on the internet, right? Okay, so
part of our objective as a company is we want to get the whole world connected. That's my personal objective, that's the company's objective, and it's just a good thing. The world will be safer if more people are talking and learning from each other, right? Because people are naturally good. People in Thailand are particularly good, right? But people are naturally good.
right, so I'm thinking about Google's "Don't be evil," that slogan. Okay, so let's move back to the hangout section. We have this student from Prince of Songkhla University, Songkhla Campus, which is from the south of Thailand. คุณเมธานนท์จงไกร
So
จักร
he's not the Prince of Songkhla University,
No,
it's the
he's
name
the
of the
name of the
university.
university.
Ah, okay, good.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so for the question is, how does Google plan to accommodate data-intensive products like games? For example, Battlefield 4 on the cloud. will there be enough capacity for all of the world's data on the cloud?
So the question was, will there be enough capacity for all the world's data on Google? On the cloud.
On the cloud.
A little bit of the background, if you're not following this, is that the big architectural change is to have mobile phones and servers called cloud servers. And the old model, which is primarily Microsoft and PCs, is really being replaced by that, thank goodness. And the cloud servers are impossibly large, and they're impossibly powerful. So we believe that yes, there will be enough capacity, partly because disk drives are getting so much cheaper. The amount of capacity that you can have is just phenomenal. And who is your friend, by the way?
It's like photo bombing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, he won't even say his name.
So he's giving us thumb ups. ขอบคุณนะคะ
ครับผม ขอบคุณครับ
So if you believe that everyone will move to cloud, do you believe that our data will be safe and sound on the cloud?
It depends on whether you think the National Security Agency is after you. No, with modern encryption, we can make your data very, very safe in the cloud. It's important to know that even data that's inside of a corporation is often stolen, it's hard to deal with, and so forth. So your data is actually safer in a Google server with encryption than it is on anything else that you could do.
All right, exactly. Okay, so move back to our room. The next question will be from Nation University, and I'd like to invite Kun Sawapak Sorsewi to come up on the stage and talk to us.
Good morning,
Yes,
sir.
hi, nice to see you.
Brace yourself,
See you
she's very
too.
energized.
Yeah, I should hope. Well, all the students are.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited right now. Okay, I'm a first-year student from Nation University, and it's an honor for me.
And where is the university?
Alright, it's at Bang Na. It's in Thailand. Yeah, it's a new university in Thailand. Yeah, we have this in our north of Thailand, Lampang, and also in Bangkok.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, it's an honor actually. Okay. My question is like you have worked for Google like more than 10 years, and you visited like many countries such as Israel, Pakistan, India, North Korea, and also Myanmar.
Yeah, and Burma.
What a surprise. In fact, I have been wondering, Myanmar is really close to Thailand. It's like next door to Thailand.
I think it's next door.
Yeah, next door to Thailand. And why did it take so long for you to come to Thailand, sir?
It's a very interesting question, actually. I've been following your trips to North Korea and to Myanmar, and just exactly like what she said, you were so close to Thailand, but yet this is your first time, your first official trip.
Yes, I've actually been to Thailand many times on vacation.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of an island called Koh Samui?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of an island called Phuket?
Okay.
Well, you've been too busy in school to go on vacation there. No, I enjoyed Thailand a great deal. It's interesting that when I was in Myanmar and I had to actually go back to California quickly for some other things, I flew from Myanmar to Thailand and I came through the airport. And I remember, this was a few months ago, and I thought, boy, Thailand is doing really well. Look at how sophisticated. My first visit to Thailand was perhaps 15 years ago. And in Bangkok, there were elephants in the streets. Really big elephants, right?
Not all of us, like we don't use that for like a vehicle anymore.
You don't? Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I've been
That's what he's
looking. I've been
saying.
looking in the streets of Bangkok, and I have not seen any elephants this trip, indicating tremendous prosperity here in Thailand, in Bangkok.
So you like it. And okay, one more a little bit, like for Google can help to...
Can I just answer your question, by the way?
Yes.
We had to.
It's okay.
There was a few governments before that did not want Google into Thailand, and we had problems with that government. I think it was more of a military government. And since democracy has returned to Thailand, we have invested in Thailand We have a very good relationship with the government. And I think our revenue is growing very quickly here. Google's impact in terms of information, our opportunity here is fantastic. So it actually does matter that the government be a democracy, be open to free speech, et cetera. Contrast that with the worst government, which would be North Korea, where there's no goal at all to have any information. In Myanmar, the government, which is new, right, and confused, do want some amount of information coming into the country. So they welcomed us.
Thank you for the question. It's really honor for me today.
Good, okay.
ขอบคุณสำหรับคำถามนะคะ ขอบคุณมากค่ะ
Thank you.
So actually your trip to Thailand is a good sign that we're
Yeah.
doing okay. We're doing
No,
better.
Thailand is doing Thailand as a country is doing well, so congratulations. And Thailand and Google are doing very well.
Okay, the next question, she's waiting for us in the Google Hangouts. She's also from Prince of Songkla University, but this time is from Pattaya Campus. So,
And where is that campus?
the campus is actually far to the south of Thailand.
Southern
more
Thailand.
Yeah,
Okay.
more southern Songkla.
Yes.
Okay, so it is คุณนาซูฮาเลนุถามคำถามได้เลยค่ะ Oh, we can't hear you. แล้วน้องนาซูฮาคะได้ยินเสียงไหมคะ
The question is, how the plan to support education through development of its product? Are there any plans you can share with us?
Okay.
You'll have to help me.
All right.
Because I couldn't hear the
I
end.
kind of figured. Okay, so the question is, how does Google plan to support education through development of its products, and are there any plans you can share with us?
Well, I think that the most important thing, thank you, it's a very good question. The most important thing that we can do is to get the country connected. Your government has just issued 3G licenses. It's now going to be possible to use mobile devices through most of the country on mobile phones and tablets. So the first thing that we will do is we'll make sure that Google is available, and Google is a very good resource for teachers and students in the educational process at every level, from grade school all the way through graduate school, college, and so forth. And I'm surprised at how many people use Google in their normal course of teaching, and that's very important. We're also looking at online universities of one kind or another, but this is early. In America, there are a number of online universities which go under the acronym MOOC, Massive Online Open Courses. We've done a partnership with something called edX, which is an MIT company, which is an attempt to spread as much information online, so that no matter where you are, you can get a world-class education if you have enough bandwidth and you have a mobile phone or a tablet.
ขอบคุณสำหรับคำถามนะคะ Okay, let's move this along. The next question is actually also from Hangout session, and he's waiting for us. คุณสันติพงษ์เทียนสถาพรนะคะจากแม่ฟ้าหลวง University. Now we're moving to the northern part of Thailand.
Northern part of Thailand. By the way, we really are using Google Hangouts. This is exciting. Yes. I'm getting my virtual tour of your beautiful country.
ถามคำถามได้เลยค่ะแนะนำตัวเองสักหน่อยนะคะ
Alright. Good morning, Mr. Eric. My name is Nam. I want to ask one question concerning about how we are using internet. How can students and children stay safe online?
Did you make that?
No, I'm sorry. I only got
If
half
there are
of it.
hiccups in the Hangout session, it's not because of Google service, but it's because Thailand's infrastructure, which is improving every day.
Yes.
Actually,
we need to invest in more infrastructure in Thailand.
right, and this is why we're here today.
That's right.
Okay, so the question is, how can children and students stay safe online?
Well, this is an important issue and not completely solved. It's difficult to know whether a person is a child or an adult to decide what to serve them. And Google has something called Safe Search, and Safe Search is typically by default on moderate, and that is to prevent the accidental viewing of porn or bad things like that. But I think the real answer is much more simple. I think that parents need to know what their children are doing online. If I had children that were 10 or 11 or 12, I would have them online, I'd have their password, and I'd look at what they're doing. And I'd have them know I was doing that, because I want them to know that I'm watching them. I think the secret to children online is an involved parent, and I think that's true worldwide.
But there's also an issue between parents and children about the knowledge gap, because parents might not be familiar with the technology nowadays.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Parents need, if your children are online, the parents need to know what the child is doing. And even if the parent doesn't particularly like computers, either take the computer away from the child or know what they're doing. Right? It's too easy for children to get in trouble online.
I actually found some very interesting thing when I was reading your book, The New Digital Age, and you say something about parents should have a privacy and security talk with their children, I mean on the internet, even before the sex talk.
That's right.
Is it how the world is running right now?
I think so. When you look at children today, look at a 4 or 5-year-old on front of a tablet, an iPad, a game. They're very sophisticated. So they'll be encountering information that maybe you don't want them to know when they're 7 or 8. But more importantly, children will make mistakes. They'll do the wrong picture of themselves, or they'll embarrass themselves, because the problem of children's judgment has never been solved. You know, teenagers just make mistakes. They have for 1,000 years. That's why we call them juveniles. We have different laws for them. So I think parental involvement and getting involved early is the only answer.
เพราะฉะนั้นการเป็นเยาวชนก็ยังมีปัญหาเรื่องการตัดสินใจพ่อแม่ต้องมีส่วนเข้ามาช่วยเยอะนะคะขอบคุณสำหรับคำถามนะคะน้องสันติพงษ์ Next we're going to move to our question right here in this room from Thappasaat University คุณโชติแสงทองค่ะ Please join us on the stage.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Schmidt.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chot Sang Thong. I'm from Thappasaat University. I have
and where is the university?
Right here in
It is
here,
in Bangkok.
Here in Bangkok.
Yes. My question, this question has always been the one, and I think a lot of people wondered. And the question is, what are the distinctive strengths of Google that attract or inspire people to want to come to work for your company?
Yeah. I think the most important strength of Google is that we believe that through technology we can make the world a better place. And so we cast what we're doing as a mission. It's more than just being a programmer. It's programming to make the world better. And we have a phrase of don't be evil, and we take this very seriously. And if you're a programmer, we want to make sure that you think that programming at Google is the best job ever. But also, if you're a lawyer or a salesperson, we want you to think that our jobs are better than in other companies because of the mission. And we take that very seriously. If you found a company after you graduate, remember that the people matter and give them a reason to believe, right? They're making Bangkok better. They're making the country better. They're serving the world. People work for many reasons besides money.
So do you have some tips to share with him and also the rest of the students right here? If they want to work for Google, is there any tips that when we get interviewed, we'll make an impression and we'll be hired by Google?
I think the most important tip is that you have to finish college and perhaps graduate school. We're fortunate to hire the best people in the world, and we give people tests. So as a programmer, we'll give you a programming test. As a salesperson, we'll give you a sales test. And it's very, very competitive. So I would encourage you to work very, very hard to develop your skills in each of those. And even if you ultimately don't work at Google, you'll do very well in any of a number of very good choices.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question will also be from the student who's with us right here in the room from King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi School of Information Technology คุณปัญจรัตน์สิริลาภพรค่ะ
School of Information Technology. My question is, I want to know about, I'm so excited. What Thailand should be achieving in the next 5 years or 10 years related to computer software field.
Related to computer
Computer
software. Well, today, let's review where Thailand is. You have good connectivity in the cities. You have relatively poor connectivity in the rural areas. So the first priority is to get the whole country connected. And that requires government action, telecommunications action, and so forth. When that happens, it's possible for every kind of software to begin to be interesting. So travel software, tourism is a very large industry here. So showing off your product, showing off what you can do, all of those sorts of things. I would start with the existing problems, tourism, education, and things like that. But I think you can do even better. When the country is connected, you can begin to have much better understanding of what's happening. So everyone complains about the traffic in Bangkok. Well, it's possible to build sites that have all the details about the traffic so you can monitor it and you can figure out whether you should go left or right, real-time traffic navigation. That would make a big difference for many of you. That's an example. There are rumors that there are problems of corruption, right? So one way to solve the problem of corruption is to use more electronic commerce, have more logging, more tracking of where the money goes, right? So those are examples of problems that would materially improve the country if software were built for them, and they'd be built here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
สวัสดีค่ะ I believe that this is the final question from our students today, from คุณ Sakuntala Jankimha from Thammasat University also, and she's with us right now.
Hi.
Hi. As I'm from Thailand University and as I'm a GSA, Google Student Ambassador.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, like Google is a well-known company in global stage, and like many people are like wanted to work for it, like for this successful company. And short, that asks you that what characteristic that you seek for in hire people. But like my question is, what is there another field like besides software engineering that you wanted to hire people like?
Well, here in the country, we have legal resources, we have public policy, we have salespeople, and we obviously have programmers. We're not a very large operation, so it's, I think, more useful to focus on how can you make this new world of technology and software work in the country. There's so many jobs involving in advertising and measurement, information ranking, mapping. I'll give you an example. The beautiful natural resources of the country, why don't you build a site that tracks environmental issues with those sites? Are they being properly maintained? That's another example. So there's so many ways in which, if you like Google, you can build on top of the Google platform that make a big difference, whether it's a business difference or a societal difference, right? Both are important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
ขอบคุณค่ะ So in short answer, no, Google doesn't only have software engineers. You guys hire other people from other fields too.
That's right. I think the students are fantastic.
Yeah, all the questions are very interesting. But I think we came to the final question. Also, there's another thing that I'd like to ask you. What excites you the most? If you look ahead, maybe in like 5 or 10 years, what do you see? What do you see people do, and what can we expect in maybe the next 10 years?
Well, we were talking about education, and I think that in 5 or 10 years, there will be software that is so much better than the education software we have today online. There's simply too many people working on it and too many new ideas. So that software around education, especially if it were in the Thai language, could have a huge impact on the country. So that's one. The other one that I'm very interested in is artificial intelligence. Going from me asking the computer questions to having the computer suggest things that I should know. So as an example, I was here first time 15 years ago. I would like the computer to say, Eric, and of course it would be my computer, it would know who I was, and it'd say, you were here 15 years ago. You stayed in this hotel. This hotel has changed names. You wouldn't like it now. Or 15 years ago, you met with this university. This university is now the top university in the country. Or your friend so-and-so is still here and you should call him. I'd like the computer to begin to suggest things that I might do. And I think that transition would be very, very helpful for all of us. It would make us much more productive.
Okay, and I heard that Google is expecting that the next billion internet users will be from Asian countries.
A lot of them are going to be from Asia.
Right, so from this region. And right now, all the students right here in this room will have to learn English every day. Do you think it's possible that when we enter the next billion, we will have to start learning some new Asian languages and it will be the main language on the internet?
I don't know if it'll become the main language. I think in my lifetime, English has become the world's global language. I'm sorry to say, if you're Thai, but I think it's probably going to continue that way. There are more Chinese speakers on the internet than there are English speakers now. And so from a purely mathematical perspective, I think that the internet will be more Chinese than English, but I think it will still be the primary language for doing business and communicating about culture will in fact be English. So the decision that you all have made to become very good at English will be the right one.
So you would suggest that everyone start learning both English and Chinese to be ready?
I think given that China is right above you, and there are 1.3 billion people there, it probably is a good idea to get to know them.
Yeah, now I feel lucky that I started early. And if you were Thai government, what would be the first thing that you do to improve this country in terms of technology?
In terms of technology?
Being very careful here.
Being very, very careful here. There's only a few things that governments have to get right, but they have to get them right. The first is that the government has to take the position that everyone needs to be connected. And what that means is everyone has to have access to wireless networks, and in the cities you have to have broad access to fiber optics. That's a decision that the government has to make. You can't do it as a citizen. I think the second thing that the government has to decide is that it's okay to have dissent, to have different points of view, that we're not going to filter the internet. China decided to filter the internet. I think it's a very bad idea. So we would say that the two things the government have to do is encourage an open and free exchange of ideas on the internet, especially about political matters, which is often very difficult. And the second one is getting everything connected. What I would tell you at that point is that the people can do everything else. All you have to do is let the people found the companies, build the markets, and so forth. Government doesn't have to do that, but it has to do the first two.
So let's record that and send it to our government.
Well, I will be meeting with your government this afternoon, and I'm going to tell them exactly the same thing.
Thank you from all of us. So what can we expect more from Google in Thailand as a Thai citizen?
Well, we have a tremendous success here with YouTube. And we would like to expand our YouTube offerings. We would like to make our search in your language even better. It's quite good now. I think it's much better than any other choices. And there's not enough Thai content. So what we would like is we would like to have more content in your language. Literally more Thai websites, more information, more discussion, just more of all of your language, your culture. We'd like to take the rich, rich history of the country and get it online. So in your spare time, when you're not being a student, get on the computer and start typing in Thai, in the Thai language.
Right. So now that you mentioned that you would like for Thailand to have more websites in our language, what do you feel about censorship on the internet?
Well, Google is strongly opposed to censorship, and indeed we moved out of China to Hong Kong because of that. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about a very specific kind of censorship. We want there to be political discussion. I would say that there's lots of political discussion in Thailand, right? And I think that's good. I think that's healthy. Maybe this side is on one side and this side is on another, but the fact that that conversation is occurring is, I think, very healthy, and it's a sign of a healthy democracy.
Earlier, I had a chance to meet up with some of the few students, and they couldn't help themselves because they had to ask you about the new Google products. Google Glass and driverless cars is what people are paying attention to. So is there any chance that we in Thailand would get to see the product soon?
Well, I'm sure you can, but the Google car would move slowly. You know, the Google car is not ready yet. Maybe this is a good place because the traffic moves slowly. You don't want it going too fast. But we want to be careful that we don't have any bugs. And so we're working on that. Similarly with Google Glass, people are beginning to use it. They're learning what it's like. It's a very, very different experience. It has some privacy issues that people are working on, and I think eventually it'll be quite successful. You're more likely to see Google Glass earlier because it's already shipping than the cars, which I think will take a few years.
So I think this is the final question. What potentials you see Thailand has in order to become the leader in the technology field in this ASEAN region or in the world, and what can we do to get to that point?
Well, as I've been indicating, I think that the underlying Thai creativity and engineering is quite good. You need to invest more in networks and in software. Networks and software. You need to have more connectivity and you need to have more software programmers. And the way that starts is that universities decide to do more of it. We literally need more students, more people in high school, right? More people who enjoy it, more people who are creative. And that will be the source of great economic growth for the country. I see nothing, Thailand has good relationships with all of its neighbors. It's obviously a great destination. Thailand has a long 180-year history with America that's peaceful and friendly and very respectful. Americans love Thailand and vice versa. I see no issues there. What I need is more software programmers, more engineers, more connectivity. I think that the rest will take care of itself.
So where do you think we are compared to the rest of the countries in the Asian region?
I think it depends. You're ahead of some of the other countries that either were in various wars or are still sort of getting their act together. So in that sense, Thai is doing much better. You're clearly behind Korea and Singapore, for example, in modernizing the tech sector, but of course Thailand is larger. So I would suggest that you try to get to the productivity and technical sophistication of those countries as fast as you can.
All right, I think that's all the time we have for today. I hope that our discussion today will lead to some significant improvement and changes in Thailand. So thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today.
And I want to thank you all for taking your time. I know you guys are busy. It's a big deal for me to be here. I'm really glad to be here, and I can assure you that Google is doing well here, you're doing well, and I will be back. So thank you again.
ขอบคุณทุกท่านนะคะ Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Okay, good. Thank you.
ก็หมดเวลาสำหรับช่วงในวันนี้แล้วนะคะน้องๆหลายคนก็คงจะได้เรียนรู้เรื่องราวที่น่าสนใจจากคำถามของตัวแทนนักศึกษาที่ได้ขึ้นมาแล้วก็ผ่านทาง Hangout ของเราในวันนี้นะคะมีทั้งวิธีการเตรียมตัวในฐานะที่เป็นนักศึกษาเตรียมตัวยังไงให้เราได้พร้อมในการที่ประเทศไทยจะเป็นผู้นำในวงการเทคโนโลยีทั้งในแถบอาเซียนแล้วก็ในโลกนี้ด้วยนะคะซึ่งคุณเอริกก็ได้พูดถึงหลายอย่างค่ะเป็นข้อคิดที่น่าสนใจมากทั้งเรื่องของการเรียนรู้ด้านเทคโนโลยีเป็นซอฟต์แวร์เอนจิเนียร์หรือว่าการสร้างสาธารณูปโภคทั้งหลายนะคะให้เตรียมพร้อมสำหรับการที่ประเทศไทยจะมาเป็นผู้นำในแวดวงเทคโนโลยีค่ะวันนี้หมดเวลาแล้วนะคะดิฉันสู้ชิงจิตสุภาชินต้องขอลาไปก่อนพบกันใหม่ครั้งหน้าสวัสดีค่ะ